Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. This is the tutorial on how I made the book Autumn Greetings using the Graphic 45 collection. I already have a walkthrough showing you all of the elements, all of the pages. This is just the tutorial. So let's jump right in and I'll show you how to make the book. All right, let's get started with the cover. So I have two pieces of medium weight chipboard. You could use heavy weight. It is from scrapbook.com. That's why it's white instead of the craft color. So this is 7 by 8.5. I have two of those. And I have one piece that's 2.5 by 8.5. I did put some double-sided adhesive. I have a 4-inch roll. I usually like to use the 6-inch, but I'm out of it. So I just put one 4-inch here and one there. I use the excess to put on my spine. I like using the double-sided adhesive to cover my albums. I'm going to put that aside for just a second. And I'm using cardstock. This is artisan linen cardstock. I cut this down to 10.5 by 10.5. I'm going to put a piece of 1/4-inch double-sided permanent adhesive on one edge of one of the pieces. I'm going to burnish that real well. And then peel off the backing. All right, so I'm going to use the lines on my mat. They're not perfect, but they'll work. To adhere this, I'm going to overlap this onto where the double-sided adhesive is. Now I'm finding these lines are not straight at all, but that's okay. All right, so I've got that down, and I'll burnish that real well. All right, now I am going to take the double-sided adhesive release paper off of my spine piece. I won't necessarily need a 2.5-inch spine, but I decided to make it a little bit bigger just in case. So now you can see through this paper, and this is actually where you'll see the end of this bottom piece. So I'm going to use that as my center mark, and I'm just going to center it as best I can. I'll have a 1-inch on the top and the bottom. Now, I could use spacers, or I could have used a score line, but I'm just going to put it down and hope for the best. We're going to cover it all, so it's not that big of a deal. Now I like to take some more 1/4-inch double-sided adhesive and put one on one side of the chipboard and one on the other side. And I just tear it. I don't worry about getting a straight line on this adhesive, especially here. Nobody's going to see it. So I'll go ahead and burnish that real good and peel off that release paper. Now I'm going to take my covers and peel off the backing on that. Okay, and when I put this down, I'm going to overlap this double-sided score tape ever so slightly. I'll have about a little more than 1/8 of an inch showing. Now, at the very least you could do is two widths, sorry, of your chipboard. The most you want to do is 1/4 of an inch. That actually is pretty big. So that's why I'm covering some of that 1/4-inch score tape. And I'll burnish that. And you'll really get a good stick because you've got score tape on here, or score tape. It's just double-sided adhesive. You could use the kind made by Suk Wang, which is called score tape, but it's okay to use this. Okay, and I do like overlapping this because you get a really good stick. Okay, and there we go. I'll turn this over. And burn it well. Now, there's different ways of doing the corners. I am simply going to cut across and there we go. I'm going to use my surface to help burnish the edge. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to use my liquid adhesive, and what I prefer to use is the Designer Dries Clear Adhesive from the Art Glitter Company. I will call it Art Glitter Glue just because that's easy to remember and that's what everybody seems to refer it to it as. There is no glitter in Art Glitter Glue. I believe it was made originally to put down glitter, and people found it was just a good all-purpose glue. Now I've got a fine tip top on it, which I like. All right, so I put the glue down against the chipboard and around the perimeter, and I zigzagged it. I'm taking my bone folder and pushing the paper up against the edge of the chipboard, and I'm just going to burnish that down. And I'll do the same with this side. Right up against the edge of the chipboard. It's hard to see because the glue is white. The paper is, it's an off-white. I think it's natural. I'm not sure what color it is. And the chipboard is white, but I'm sure you can see it. Now, if you prefer to use a different method of covering your albums, that is quite all right. You can use whatever method you want. This is the method that I've used. I can't say I've used it on every single album. Sometimes I use the lay flat cover method, but I just felt like doing it this way this time. All right, and then here you'll see there is a corner at the top that I'm just going to use my bone folder and push down. And here there is a piece of paper. I'm going to cut that down. And I'm going to do the same here. Just put a line of glue. Does a couple of things. Putting that bead of glue helps moisten the fibers in the paper, so it helps it bend easier. It also helps it adhere to the edge of that chipboard. And it also gives me something to do thinking I'm doing something wonderful. I don't know if all that really makes a difference. All right, I'll just burnish that real well and do the same for this side. Push that in, push that in. Now, it being fall and getting cold in some areas, if you don't have a supply of your art glitter glue, you might want to hurry up and order it. It doesn't ship in the winter. If companies tell you they'll ship it, ask them how they're going to make sure it stays warm, because it just gets all globby if it gets cold. I guess it's 40 degrees is the magic number. All right, so now I've got it all covered. You may see there's a little bit of a piece here. I'm going to flatten that down, and you still may see a mark, but that's okay. All right, I'm going to take the blunt end of my bone folder and go across this area a couple of times, just so the uh, double-sided adhesive on the top will stick to the double-sided adhesive on the bottom. I'll fold up my cover to make sure. Do the same here and there. All right, and that is how I do the cover. Now, you could, if you wanted to, cover this, but I'm going to cover this part with the hinge. So I'm going to work on that next. Okay, I have a piece of paper that is 8 inches by 12 long. I'm using my scoreboard, and with the 12-inch side at the top, I'm going to score. I'm going to make a hinge with uh, six hinges and 5 gussets. So there will be 6 pages. So here's a hint for you. If you're not sure how this is going to fit, or how many pages you want, or if you want the gusset to be larger, you can use a scrap paper and just make a little hinge. And that's what I do. I usually keep them around for a while till they get raggedy, and then I throw them out. But that way I know on my 2.5-inch hinge, I have room to put 6 hinges with 3/8 inch between. If I wanted to do a 1/2 inch between, I don't think there'd be enough room, but I could try it and see. I'm pretty sure there wouldn't. But it's just a good way of being able to measure. So you can make these, and like I said, just keep them. Just write down what you did if you think you'll forget, and just keep it in your drawer. All right, so I'm going to start scoring at 2. And so what we're going to do is 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8. So we'll start at 2, and make sure your paper is up against the side and the top. 2.5, 3, 3 and 3/8, 3 and 7/8, 4 and 3/8, 4 and I'm sorry, 4 and 3/4, 5 and 1/4, 5 and 3/4, 6 and 1/8, 6 and 5/8, 7 and 1/8, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 8 and 7/8, 9 and 3/8, 9 and 7/8. Going to move my scoreboard and grab my bone folder. So what I'm going to do is turn this over so the bumpy side is facing up, and I'm going to first fold in between each of those 1/2 inch scores. So here's a half, here's a half. I'm going to fold in between that on that score line, and I'm going to burnish once I make sure my sides are lined up. It's really important when you use your scoreboard that you make sure it stays up to the top and the side. And then I'm going to skip 2 lines and fold again at the 3rd. So skip, skip, fold. And again, make sure it's lined up and burnish. So I'll do that again, skip, skip, fold, till I've gotten all of my hinges folded. So that's the 1/2 inch piece in between the middle of the 2 1/2 inch pieces. And here we go. Okay, now I'm going to let the paper help me. I'm going to hold it down so I've got it. So at the top it'll move. I can have my fingers move it. I'm not holding it so stiff. And when you pull this towards you, you'll notice that area that you scored will come up and make a mountain. So you'll see it. It will fold towards you. So I'm going to pull it up so it's tall enough that I can grab a hold of it with my fingers and fold on that score line. So I'll do that again. And 4 more times. Now I don't have any glue. I'm just letting the paper fold. So I use my fingers to fold. Now, if you don't like to use your fingers, you can go ahead and take your bone folder. Now I am going to pull all these hinges and push them down towards me. I'll just eyeball it, make sure that they're straight, and I'll take my bone folder and burnish. Then I'll push them all away from me. Again, there's no glue. And burnish. All right, now it's time to use some glue. I'm going to grab something just so that my surface doesn't get all gluey. And I'm going to, so we've got the pointy face here is now down. So I'm going to take some glue and zigzag across the length of one of these hinges, and I'll turn it over and burnish. So you see that one's all closed together. Now I'm not going to get too close to the edge, because if you get too close to the edge, the glue's going to run out. I'm about a 1/4 inch away. If you want to make sure it's going to stay closed, you can run a bead of glue at the top, but it's not necessary. So I'll do that. In fact, I'll go for broke here and add glue on a second one. If you're in an area where it's hot and dry or you have a fan running, you may only want to do one at a time. Oops, come here, you. Because it may dry before you get to burnish it. I first use my fingers, and then I'll use my bone folder. So I have 2 more. And 1 more. Burnish and burnish. Now I'm going to, again, burnish them all together. And this is where you should double check and see if any glue comes out. If it does, clean it up before you burnish it. So there's that. Then I'll fold them all away from me and burnish it again. All right, and there we have our hinge system. So now I'll take my cover and I'll eyeball it first. So this is 8 inches, and of course our cover is 8.5. So you should have a 1/4 inch available. I'm going to center it and make sure I've got it centered on the sides. And once I know where it's going to go, then I'll add glue to it. To add glue, I just hold it loosely in my hand and let the paper come up to form like a V. So that's where I know I can add glue onto the crease line where the hinge comes together. You have to work fairly quickly here, because even if you don't have a fan going and it's not too hot, this is going to be a lot of glue all at once, and you don't want it to dry. If you need to, you can open the top and not have a fine point of glue come, just a little more glue. You want to make sure you get enough glue on here to hold it down, because this is the hinge system. Super important. All right, so you see how much I have on there. There we go. All right, now I'm going to hold it on the sides, the wings I call it. And I know I want a 1/4 inch on the bottom, 1/4 inch on the top, and really just about a 1/4 inch from where this hinge starts to the gusset, and same here. So it looks like it's a little off there, so I just pull it and straighten it out, and it looks good here. All right, then I take my finger. Again, if you don't want to use your finger, use your bone folder, and I start in the center. I go from the top to the middle, from the bottom to the top. Just sort of open up the hinges. I start at the middle and work my way out. And as you move the hinges, you sort of feel it move towards the center. That's closing up the gap. Just make sure it's all nice and even. You still have time to move it, but when you get it all situated, go ahead and use your bone folder and burnish. I'll move them all the other way. And burnish. Okay, and now we've got this side. Now it's a little bit off. Just a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to add glue here. A little bit of glue where that gusset is. We've got that double-sided adhesive there. Don't cover that, but on the top of the paper. And then I'll go around the perimeter and add zigzag some on that side. So I'll go ahead and just burnish this gently. And then I'll take my bone folder and go again in that crevice where we've got the double-sided adhesive. Being careful so it doesn't come out the top, but it is. So just gently go back and forth. And then burnish this part. I'm going to turn this over so I can do the same for the other side. So I'll pull this up because we don't have any glue on this piece or underneath. So I'm going to zigzag on the spine piece. I'll put some here in that crevice, not going all the way to the edge. And then I'll put some on this side of the cover because this is a bigger piece here. All right, I'll go around the perimeter. Zigzag here. Okay, going to gently burnish here up to that score line. Then I'll go in this crevice. And then burnish this down. So there we have the hinge. On our book. So I'm going to let this all dry while I make the base pages. All right, next we're going to need 12 pieces of cardstock that are 6.5 by 8.5. And before I go any further, let me just stop here and let you know that I'm using 12 by 12 paper. Now you could use 8.5 by 11 paper, but you'll have different scraps left than I do, which is okay. But I've had some people follow my tutorials, and when they're all done, they have tons of different size scraps because I reuse the pieces that are left. So for instance, when you cut this 8.5 by 6.5, you're going to have a 5.5 by 12-inch piece, and you'll have 3.5 by 6.5-inch pieces. And these I will be using later on. So it's okay. Just know that. So anyhow, I've cut down my paper to 6.5 by 8.5. And all of them I'm going to put on my scoreboard with the 8.5 side at the top and score at 8. So you'll take all of them and score at 8. Now I'll go ahead and grab scissors, and you can skip this step if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and miter. So I'm taking my scissors, and from that 1/2 inch tab, I'm just cutting from that score line up into the paper. So I'll do that with both of these papers. So you'll have 6 sets of 2s. And just throw those out. And then I'll take my bone folder and fold and burnish on the score lines. And what we're doing is we're going to make tubes. These are our base pages, so we're going to be making tubes. So I have this one with the folded tab facing up and to the left, and this one the folded tab facing down to the right. And then we'll just put them together. So I have this paper underneath that tab, and I'm simply going to add glue to the underside of this tab. And making sure the sides are even. I'll fold that over and burnish. And then I'll turn this upside down. Here's the other tab, and do the same with this. Now, I used to put these tabs on the inside so you wouldn't see them, but you know, you're going to cover this with pattern paper anyhow, so you're not going to see it. And this way, there's nothing inside that when you slip in a hidden pocket page, it can't get hung up. Not that it ever does, but just to keep things neat and clean. All right, so here is our book. There's our spine. I always start at the back of the book and go forward. Now I'll dry fit this first and see, make sure this will fit. It's a little tight. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors and just cut off a little piece, just a little corner. Just go down about halfway on the page. And then let's dry fit this again. And now that seems to fit a lot better. So what we're going to be doing is adding glue to this, just to the top portion on both sides, and then add our little tube into there, and that will go in the page. Now when we put it in, we don't want to go all the way to the bottom, because I don't know if you hear it, but it'll click. It doesn't move as freely. So I'll put it down and then come up maybe about 1/8 of an inch. So you just have a little bit of the hinge showing. So I'll grab the glue. First I'll put it on one side. And again, I'm just going to keep it at the top half of the hinge, not close to the base where it hits this spine. I don't need too much glue, but it's really important that this stays in because this is what all the pages will be glued adhered to. So now I put that on, stretch the paper. I'm all the way down to the bottom, but I'm gonna pull it up about 1/8 of an inch on both sides. I'm also making sure that it's even parallel to the edge of the book so the page opens nicely. It's a little bit high on the top. And then once that's good, I'll go ahead and burnish. Now, if you have any glue seep out, go ahead and clean it up right away. And there we go. There is the first page. And then I'll go ahead and cut these all down because since one didn't fit, probably the other ones won't. again, I just cut, I'm starting from about 1/4 of an inch from the side, just going to halfway. I'll do it this way. And then again, starting from the back of the book, I'll work my way to the front. I'm making sure this tab stays on the bottom. It really doesn't matter, but just for consistency, I'm going to make sure the tab's on the bottom of each of the pages. So I'll add my adhesive, put this in. And I'm making sure that's lined up with the page before it. And then I'll just burnish. And again, add glue. So I'll do that with the rest of the pages and get them all in the book. And then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, from the papers we have cut, you will have a scrap piece that's 5.5 by 12. Take 2 of those, you'll have 12 of those. Take 2 of those and cut them down to 5.5 by 8. Then let's further cut one down to 5. So you'll have one that's 5.5 by 8 and one that's 5 by 8. I'm tossing that out. And then there were smaller scraps that were 6.5 by 3.5. Let's cut that down to 5.5 by 3.5. So just take off 1 inch. Grab your scoreboard and those 2 larger pieces, the 5 by 8 and 5.5 by 8. I'm looking for my scoring tool. We're going to score each of those with the short side at the top at 1/2 inch. So the 5.5 by 8 will score with the 5.5 side at the top at 1/2 inch, and the 5 by 8 with the 5-inch side at the top at 1/2 inch. Sound like I'm repeating myself. The 5.5 by 3.5, we're going to score also. We're going to score that at 1/2 inch, and we're going to score that at 5/8. So I want a little gusset on this one. Trying to make sure it will show in the camera. I am going to grab my scissors and miter on the corner. So here we'll miter that 1/2 inch piece, just cut off a little sliver. All right, I'm going to fold and burnish on our score lines. Of course, it's a little more tough with this one because you've got 2 score lines, those really close together. But I wanted to gusset on this one because it's going to get a little bulky on this page. Well, actually, before I bring the book, I'm going to open this. So this is the 5.5 by 8. This is the 5 by 8. I'm going to just attach those. Now, I could have just taken a larger piece of paper and cut it down, which you could do. But again, I'm trying to use up all of the scraps so we don't have anything left over when we're all done. All right, I'm just making sure that is lined up well. I actually could pull this down a little, make sure it still opens, and we're good. So fold and burnish on our score lines. Now we'll grab the book, and I'm going to take this tab and put it on the left-hand side of the page. So I'm putting it on the base page, not on the hinge. And there's a difference. You still want a little bit of room. So there's about 1/8 of an inch showing on the hinge. Okay, we got that. And then this one, I'm going to center on the right-hand side of the page and just glue that down. So I'm gluing it on to the edge of the page. And there still is that little gusset. So the reason I did that is because this is going to hold the page down and we're going to put a magnet here. I wanted these pieces to be big enough that you could put 4x6 photos. Now we may not have a photo here, but you could put one here, 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 and then you could put one portrait, landscape style here. So with that in mind, that's how we're going to decorate it. I am going to add magnets. And the magnets I have do not have adhesive on it. So I'm going to grab some double-sided tape and put a little bit of that here. And grab my magnets. So there's one, there's two. I will put a link on where you can get those. It is an affiliate link. I do get a slight amount of compensation if you do purchase that, but more than anything else, I'm excited that I can bring them to you. I'm looking for a little piece of paper. Oh, you know what? That one that I just threw out. I'm going to fold that in half, put that down. So there's the magnet. I'm going to put just paper here and put that magnet on there. What I like to do is take a dot of my adhesive, put it right in the center of the magnet, and fold it over. Now it's sort of dangerous to fold it over before I get the paper on it, but I want to show you how to do this. So I put a little dab. You can't see it, but there's well, you might be able to see it, a place where the glue is. So that's where I know it's going to match up with the magnet. So I'll put some of the double-sided adhesive down, peel off the glue, and then fold this over. Again, I want to make sure there's room for expansion once I put on the pages. And then there we go. To make sure it stays down, I'm reaching over and grabbing tape. And I'm just going to simply tape this down. And that way, whoops, since I'm not decorating it right away, these magnets will stay and not move. So that is how I'm doing this. Now this page, I'm going to wait till later. I want to use this piece for it. And this one is going to go here. I've got this pumpkin theme going on with these pages, but that is the sizing. That's why I chose the size. So I'm just going to leave these here and then move on to the back of page 1. All right, for the back of page 1, I have this piece, one of the leftover scraps, and it's 5.5 wide by 12. We're going to cut it at 6.25, making a mark because my little trimmer doesn't go that high, and I like using this little trimmer. This piece should actually be 6.25 by 5.5. And then out of a full sheet of 12 by 12, cut a piece that's 6.75 by 12. If you're using 8.5 by 11, then you can just cut it by 12. The measurements will be off a little bit, but that way you don't have to waste paper. Or, so 6.75 by 12. The 6.75 side at the top, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to rotate it So the side with the score is going to be at the top, and the 12-inch side is going to be at the top. We're going to score it at 8. And then I'm going to just take some scissors and cut off this little tab. So I'm just going to go straight down the score line. Now you could use your paper trimmer if you don't get a good straight cut. I'm going to go add a miter here. And this one, that's 6.5 by 5.5. With the 5.5 side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. I hate when my writing is upside down, so that's why sometimes I flip it over, but it's not necessary. All right, let's fold and burnish on our score lines. This one will go to the back. No, it'll come to the front. My idea, oops, the piece fell into the trash can. My idea was for this flap to not be the full size of the page, so you know it's a flap. So unfortunately, we need to cut this down by just by 1/4 inch. Sorry, got the wrong measurements. So this is 6 1/4 by 5.5. So what we're going to have is this flap will come up, this will come down, and then this page will open. So let's glue this one here. So I'll add glue to the bottom tab. Glue that to the bottom. And then add glue to here. Oops. And glue that to the left side of the page. Just try to make sure that it's all straight. The sides are straight, the bottom's straight. And then burnish. So again, we've got, and actually go like this will come up, this will come down, and then this will open like that. We'll add a magnet here and one here, but I'm going to decorate this first, and then we're going to add the magnet to the element that's going to hold this down. So now let's go to the front of page 2. And by the way, I have labeled them 2F, 2B. So the front of page 2, the back of page 2, 3F, 3B, etc. This is the inside back cover, and that's the inside front cover. So that's just my labeling system. All right, let's do the front of page 2. All right, so for the front of page 2, it's going to be simple. I have a piece that's 5 by 7. We're going to put the 7-inch side at the top and score it 1 inch. And we're just going to leave that. I'm not going to do anything with it until we add pattern paper. So I might just tack it down with some ATG so I keep everything together. So that's all we need to do for the front of page 2. I'm going to make a change to that. For this page, I wanted to use this cut apart, so I had to change the sizing of this. So instead of having a 1-inch gap, I'm going to have 1/2 inch. So this is 4 3/4 by 7. Put the 7-inch side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. That will make it so this cut apart will fit on the front of that. So I want to make the change and let you know about that before we go any further. All right, for the back of page 2, two pieces of our leftover scraps. So this is 5.5 by 12. We're going to cut it down to 9. I'm actually taking just 3 off of it. So this is 9 by 5.5. And then another piece that's 5.5 by 12. We're going to cut it down to 2 5 by 5.5 inch pieces. So I'm going to cut down 2 5-inch pieces. 1, 2. All right, let me get my scoreboard and I'll show you how to score it. Score 1/2 inch on the longer side and then score. So with the 5-inch side at the top, score it 1/2 inch and 4.5. 1/2 inch and 4.5. And with this 9 by 5.5, we're going to score it 1/2 inch and 8.5. All right, I'm going to miter and burnish these pieces. Now these, I'm going to miter across the X created by those 2 score lines. All right, and this one will fold and miter, and we'll glue everything to this and then glue that on the page. Okay, so what I did is I marked, these are 4 inches across now, once we fold this in. So I marked 2 inches there, and I'm going to take my thumb notch and go right in at that 2-inch mark. Okay. All right, so we have this. Here's our tabs. We have this. Here's our tab. This tab I'm going to put on the other side of our, it's sort of like a belly band. It's a long pocket is what it is. So turning this over, I've got the tabs there. I'm going to glue this down and then turn it over and make sure it's nice and even. That's why I use liquid adhesive, because it's got a little give to it. So I'll put that one down and that one down. I'm not really burnishing. I want to see where we are here. And I want these to butt up against each other. And also I want it to be even with the top and bottom of the page. And I think that's pretty good. All right, once I get that, I'm going to burnish this. Turn that over and burnish. Oops. Okay. And then I'm going to glue these down onto here. Wait, do I want to do that? No, I'm not going to glue it down until I put the paper under here, and then I'll glue it down. So this is ready to add to the paper. Now, the reason I put this here is because I'm going to add glue on here, and so our paper underneath won't be able to go any further than this. So I'll add glue here. And fold this in. And then put it up against the end of the base page. So it's on the base page, not necessarily on the spine. So I'll burnish all that. So that is the back of page 2. All right, front of page 3. You'll need 2 pieces that are 8 inches, and it's from the 5.5-inch piece. So I'm just leaving it at 5.5. I'm going to take my bone folder or scoring tool. I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch and at 3 3/4. Do it to both, 1/2 inch, 3 3/4, which with the 5 1/2 inch side at the top. All right, I'm going to miter, so we'll miter this little one. And we're going to miter this. So start at that score line and just go in a little. I guess I'm going in 1/4 inch. It's probably more than I need. So we'll do that with this other one as well. Okay, fold and burnish on the score line. I'll start at that small one. And then we'll fold and burnish on this larger score line. We'll do that for the other piece as well. Okay, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to put the 1/2 inch tab on the side this way because I don't like things upside down. And we're going to have the folded edge meet in the middle. So we're going to start on the right hand side and glue this down. Actually, I'm going to glue down this large tab. I wanted a folded edge. I just thought it would be prettier. All right, now we'll glue this tab down. Matching it up bottom and top, and then burnish. Okay, so now when you put this one down, you're going to first match it up so these meet where the folded edge is. So we'll glue this one down first. And then add glue here. And I'll match up my folded edge. Just butt it up against the other one. Make sure the bottom and top line up. And then burnish. I'm going to have one cut apart on this with 2 magnets, one for each side, and put 2 corresponding magnets on the flaps, and that way it'll stay closed. Page 4F is going to be a mirror of 3B, and I'm going to take a new piece of 12 by 12 paper and cut 2 pieces 8 inches by 6. So you cut it at 8 and then you cut it in half at 6. And then I also have 2 pieces that are 4. I'm going to cut this to 7 1/2. Now I had these out of my scraps. If you don't have them right away, you will have them as we go. All right, so with this piece, we're going to score with the 7 1/2 side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, rotate it once, score it 1/2 inch, rotate it again, and score 1/2 inch. Let's do that for the other one. And with the 8 by 6 inch side piece, put the 8 inch side at the top, score 1/2 inch. I'm going to fold in my burnish. Whoops, miter if you wish. All right, I do need to miter here because these are going to be pockets. So I'm going to miter on that top tab and then across the X created by our score lines. The two top pieces. And there we go. Fold and burnish. So what we have is two pockets that'll go on the bottom and two flaps that'll go on the top. So these pages will be identical. Doesn't mean we're going to decorate them identical, but they'll look identical. And on the bottom part, here's where our tab is. I'm going to use a corner rounder because I like my flaps to have rounded bottom corners. Just one of those things. Just don't feel like it looks like a flap unless it does. So one at a time. We'll take this. Put this on the bottom. Make sure it comes over to the bottom and to the sides. And I'm going to do the other one. Before I glue the sides, I'm going to put tape so nothing can get snagged in the bottom by these tabs. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Let me put this in and burnish and grab some tape. So I have, it may be Scotch, I'm not sure who it is. I'm going to just cover this and then I'll glue this. Put that up. So even if I don't put a full sheet of paper in here, let's say I only go up to here, you put something in the pocket, it's not going to get hung up where this tab is because of the tape. It'll help it go all the way down. Just one of those tricks. Of course, if you were to put a full sheet of paper in, it's not going to make a difference at all. But since I haven't figured out the measurements on my decorating yet, just want to add that precaution. All right, and then I'll go ahead and put that in. So this is smaller than the page, so you'll need to center it on. There's going to be about 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So we'll just put it on and then burnish. Oops, it looks like this side's a little taller. There we go. And then I'll do this one. Put this down, 1/4 of an inch on each side will show. And burnish. All right, so now we don't have the covers done, but we've got the pages up to the center of the book. We do need to have magnets here. Now what I'm going to do is repeat what we've done. So this page is going to be the same as this. This page is going to be the same as this. It's just going to be in reverse. So for this, I used the scrap paper. I still have some left, but I'm actually going to just take a full sheet of paper and cut it down to 8 See, here's another one of those, which we could have used. Just 6. I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch and 3 3/4. 1/2 inch, 3 3/4. We're going to miter. Don't forget we mitered these because we wanted a folded edge to be in the center. So we'll do the same here. And I'm going to glue this down. And that too. Grab our book. And this is going to be for 4B. So again, we're going to put this on the outside first. So it'll go on the left-hand side of 4B. Right at the edge, make sure the bottom's lined up. And then put glue on the other one. And this will go on the right-hand side, butting it right up to what we have over here. Oh, there we go. All right. I have a 5.5 by 12 inch piece. I'm going to cut that down to 9. And then we're going to do the same. So we're going to have 5 by 5.5. Was that what that was? Yep. 5. And with the 5.5 side at the top, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. With the 5 inch side, we'll score it at 1/2 inch and 4.5. Same with this. 5.5 at the top, score at 1/2 inch. 5 inch side, score at 1/2 inch and at 4.5. I'm gonna miter, go across these and miter. And I'm going to use my thumb notch. And to make sure I have the right measurements, I'm going from the score line to the score line, mark 2. I'm going to go down about 3/4 of an inch so I can see it when I use my thumb notch. And there's this line on here to help you match it up. I should put a line up here, measure that. I went down too far because I can't see it. Alrighty. Oh, this piece, this 9 by 5.5, we need to score. Do this at 1/2 inch, and rotate it, score it at 1/2 inch, or score it at 1/2 inch and 8.5. Okay, we'll fold and burnish on the score lines. Okay, and don't forget, so this is going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to put the tabs on the inside. So I'll add glue to these. And do my best to get them to look even. And I'll turn it over. Okay, got to burnish that. And then grab the book. And that's going to go here because this one was on that page facing that way, so this will be facing that way. We're going to glue these tabs because that will be the stop. And that'll go against the spine on the left-hand side of the page on the base page, not on the spine. Remember, we're not going to glue these down yet because we're going to put pattern paper here first. So there is that. So guess what we're going to do on this page? We're going to do the same as what we had done here. So here we need a 5x7 piece that'll go on this side, and then we'll repeat what we had here, and that'll go on that side. So let's cut a 5x7 piece first. Okay, so for the back of page 5, I have a 5x7 piece of cardstock with a 7-inch side at the top. I'm going to score it at 1. And then I had mentioned before that I'm going to use ATG to glue it on. So what that means is I have this advanced tape glider, and I'm just going to add a little dab, less than an inch. And although it is permanent adhesive, you can just twist it off once you've gotten it on. So what I do is, it's going to go on this page after I get pattern paper. So I just put it on the page so I don't forget about it till I add the pattern paper. Once I add the pattern paper, I'm going to add decorative paper here, and it's just going to flip like that. So that is really all we need to do to that for right now. For 6F, what we're doing is the same as this. This was 6 1/4. I don't know if you remember, but I messed up on that. 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then the larger piece was 6 3/4 by 12. So I've already cut those. 6 3/4 by 12. I'm going to take the 12-inch side and score it at 8. And then I'm going to, I've got the score line down towards the bottom, and I'm going to score it with the 6 3/4 side at the top at 1/2 inch. Just because it's going to be reverse of the other one. This 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. Ignore that. That's not true anymore. So now I will miter here and cut down right on the score line to that score. We'll fold and burnish on this score line. And this will come down. So what's going to happen here is this will come down. Uh-oh. You know what I did? I scored it on the wrong thing. I meant to score it on the other. So I'm going to recut this. You could probably use this again if you wanted to, but I'll recut this and do it again. So a new 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. This time with the 5 1/2 side at the top, scored at 1/2 inch. I was going through thinking, all right, this will be a breeze. It won't take long. We can finish and start decorating. And then I make a mistake, but that's okay. It's just paper. So I will add this to the bottom piece here. And now we can add this onto the front of, I'm just seeing, so it's glued onto the outside. It just was making sure that's how we did it. So I'll glue this tab on the 8-inch side. And this will go right here. So we've got, that'll open like that. And then this gives you a whole 2-page spread for some wonderfulness. All right, so for the back of page 6, we have a piece that's 5 1/2 by 3 1/2, piece that's 5 by 8 and 5 1/2 by 8. The 5 1/2 by 8, we're going to score it 1/2 inch with the 5 1/2 inch side at the top. Same with the 5 by 8, the short side at the top, so the 5-inch side at the top, score it 1/2. And the 5 1/2 by 3 1/2, we're going to score with the 5 1/2 side at the top at 1/2 inch and at 5/8. That teeny little gusset. Let's fold and miter on the score lines. I'm camping here in the woods in Tennessee. All of a sudden, I just heard a whole bunch of screeching out there. Sounds like an osprey, but it also could be an eagle because, I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere. There is no signal, just to let you know. Alrighty, what I'm going to do is make sure the bottoms are straight. I'm going to put that 5-inch piece in the back, the tabs in the front. We'll just fold that over and burnish, and then grab the book and add glue to the tab on the 5.5-inch piece. And fold that over and burnish. Try to keep it on the page, not on the hinge. And it looks crooked and I don't know why. I could have put the page on crooked. I could have cut it crooked. I could have scored it crooked. But I put it on there straight, so we're good. Then I'll add glue to this 1/2-inch tab on the small piece and center that. I am just eyeballing it. And I want the 1/2-inch tab to be glued to the edge, not the 5/8. And there we go. All right, to make the waterfall, I have a piece that is 6.5 by 7.25. I'm going to put the 7.25 side at the top and score it at 3/4 of an inch. Now we're not going to miter any of these. And I usually use a 1/2 inch, but here I'm using 1/4 because this is going to hold everything on the page and I want to make sure it stays on taut. So now starting at the top, we will put our waterfall pieces on, or 4.5, I'm sorry, 5 by 6.5. But of course they're folded down and now they're 4.5 by 6.5. So just get the top and the sides lined up well on your first piece. That's most important. And now let's do the next one. So I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the tab of the last piece we put on, but I also want to make sure it's straight. So if you have to adjust it here, you can adjust it. There's that. And continue on. And one more. All right, so what we're going to do with this is put this on our page once we've gotten the paper put on. I'm going to use this as a closure. I'll put a magnet. I'll cut a another piece out. I have to look and see if I have an oval die or a punch. So we're going to put this on here and make that the closure. Do I want that in the center? Probably just about like that, but honestly I'm going to wait till I get the decorative paper on and then I'll decide. But if I'm going to go like that, then I'm going to need to score this at 4. And I'll do 4 1/8. So there's a bit of a gusset. And fold that. I'll cut it down and glue it there and go like that. But again, I'm going to wait till I get the decorative paper on before I decide for sure this is how I'm going to do that. All right, inside back cover. I was going to put another waterfall that would be portrait. Decided against that. I always do a pocket with a flap on the back, inside back cover, and I just am more comfortable with that because I feel like you don't know what size photos you're going to have left, and that way you can just put them in the pocket. You could make a little folio that goes in the back. You could make a waterfall that goes in the back. You could do what you want, but I'm going to do a flap in a pocket. So with the 8-inch side at the top, I'm going to score it 1/2 inch. And I have a piece that's 8 by 4. I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch with the 8-inch side at the top, and it's 7.5, and rotate it one more time, and with the short side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. So again, it'll be a pocket and a flap, miter, miter, miter across our score lines. And I am going to, as I always do with my flaps, round the corners. Fold and burnish. I will add my little pocket, and I'm going to put it over to the outside, to the right side first, because I want to make sure the book will still open. And then line it up at the bottom. Oops, that moved a little. If you're more comfortable, instead of having this 8, you could cut it down to 7 7/8, and then score with my tape. And glue this to the sides. And add glue to the tab, and this will go at the top. There's still room if you want to do circle closure here, which I might, or you could do a magnet. So that is it for the inside construction of the book. I'm going to decorate it, and it may be in this video, maybe in a second one, to show you how I do the decorating. Okay, the last thing we're going to do before decorating is to make the hidden pocket pages. So of course they're pocket pages, and we're going to put mats in between. So I'm going to use the measurements 6.5 by 7.5. Feel free to change those if you want them. You could, the paper is 8 inches tall, so you could go 7 3/4 if you wanted to. I like it to make it easy to take in and out, and you could put a 4 by 6 photo on here with no problem. And I also like to use a tab punch. Now there's other things you can use instead of a tab punch. You can use, you could just round the corners, double check the measurement before you do it to make sure that's what you want. You could use a tab topper, just punch it out. There are, I'm trying to find my handy dandy punches that you also could use this one. So that's a round tab punch. You could just put those on, and that would be fun. You could do neat things like that. And there's also this kind of tab punch. So you could put that onto the paper. I like to make it as part of the paper though. I just like that other detail. Putting my punches back. So I use the tab punch board and the tab punch. They're both by Weir Memory Keepers. Of course, you see I've doctored this up so I know exactly where I want to do my lines. So what I'm going to do for this one is do a punch on one side. It's actually going to be at the very end. I've already made my pages for the rest of the book, but I want to show you how I do this. So for this one, I'm going to go all the way to the end and I make one punch. So now when I use my tab punch, this is the size punch it makes. And I want to make my next punch with my tab punch board just a little bit bigger so I have an outline, a margin around my tab. So I've written down on here 1/8 of an inch from my medium-sized tab. So I turn this over and I put this at the mark that I made and punch, and then there is my tab. Now for this, you could use a paper trimmer or scissors, but I will use this. It comes out good 90% of the time. Whoops, see, but not this time. Go all the way to the end, and that trims off that last little piece. Sometimes there's a bump right here. Sometimes I have to take my nail file and file it down, but usually it comes out okay. So there's that, and then once I'm done, I'll go through and find scraps, and I will add scraps to the top of the page. So you see why I like that? It's just one piece. It's not going to come off. You don't have to glue it on. It's not a big deal if you do. Just use what you have. But that is how I like to make my hidden photo mats for my pocket pages. I will go ahead and put paper on here that's 1/8 of an inch smaller than the width and the height. If this is at 7.5, so I'll do 7 3/8. And this part is about 5 1/4, so I'll do 5. I'm sorry, 5 3/4. I'll do 5 5/8 for the main part of this. I may use some plain cardstock. I may use pattern paper. It depends on what I have left by the time I'm done. And then I'll use scraps to make the punch. So that is how I make my hidden pocket pages. And that is it. That is the tutorial on how I made the Autumn Greetings mini album using Graphic 45's paper. I hope you enjoyed this. Please, 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 if you have not already subscribed, now would be the time to subscribe. Let me know that you appreciate these tutorials. And I probably will do a decorating video, not full-blown page by page decorating, but more tips and tricks and how I get some of the details on the pages. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you so, so much for watching and have a fabulous